Hello guys, this is the second video out of 3 videos that I have prepared for the Oxygen Not Included series. In the first video, we reviewed some of the reasons that make the Oxygen Not Included a special game. In this video, I will share my thoughts on what are some aspects of this game that need more attentions. A quick disclaimer, I really like the game and I think it is currently one of the best games that I have ever played. However, I see great potential for improvements. So without further ado, let's begin. First of all, let's talk about the game objective. In the early game, the goal is to survive. And it is absolutely fun. You try to find and create sustainable food resources, produce enough oxygen, create bedrooms, restrooms, power generations, trying to optimize your room placements to minimize the travel time. And the fun continues till the mid game. The mid games is anywhere between turn 100 to turn 300s. If you make it to the mid game, that means you have already overcome the food, water, power, heat and gas pressure problems. At this point, the game becomes an open sandbox. You can create different things, but you really don't need to. In this regard, the game is very similar to Minecraft. There are two objectives for winning the game which feel like artificial goals to me. One is to build a monument and the other one is to build a spaceship to escape your current planet. This issue is not limited to Oxygen Not Included. You can see the same pattern in the Minecraft. The goal there is to beat the Ender Dragon. And here is feeling the same, like developers added them to have goals for these games. I mean, nothing is wrong with sandbox games. You should create some challenges for yourself though. There are many people that enjoy the sandbox mode. However, there are also many players, including me, that prefer to have a set of goals. Players like me always ask, why should I build this? Would it help me to achieve my final objective? And there is this point in Oxygen Not Included that you will ask, what should I do next? And why I need to do that? Now let's jump to the second item that needs more attention. In the early games, you can't find any two different players with a similar base. But in the end game, since you have extracted most of the resources in the planet and you have built almost all the necessary buildings, most of the players' base are almost identical. There is no resources left in the map, so all different bases become similar bases with the difference of locations for different types of buildings. You are not terraforming this planet, you just make it derive from all the different resources. As a result, the endgame is very linear. Even the tasks are grindy and not interesting. One example is the telescope that should discover a series of planets just to delay the endgame artificially. There is almost nothing gained from those space travels, and as a result, players are not motivated for the space part. The third item is the game balance. In the first few colonies, the options seems to be endless. However, in reality, after a few colonies, player would know what items are almost necessary, like mushroom farms and cooling loops with a steam turbine and an aquanator, and what items are almost useless, like most of the recreation tabs or even like showers or jetpacks. They are not useful. The first run that I made it into the space took me around 1,000 turns, but the next time that I made it to the space, the number decreased to 500 turn. I didn't speedrun the game, just didn't do any unnecessary task or built any unrequired buildings. For example, you can build showers just for the aesthetic effects, but there are many cheaper alternatives to boost morals of dupes than selecting the showers. Or mushroom as a food is dominant and it's very easy to use in mid games. So why a player use any other food sources? Exosuits need some customization as well. Some tuning can solve these issues. No item should be dominant, no food should be dominant. Mushroom, for example, is cheap, full of calories and easy to farm. That makes it the best option. So there should always be a trade-off. In the current game, a single artist in your base can create all the statues, all the arts, and every one of them would be a masterpiece. And all of them would boost the decors equally. It shouldn't be the case. Since I mentioned the artist, I should talk about the carrier. The game has different working categories such as builders, diggers, farmers, doctors, and they will have different types of hats, but the hats have no meanings. And some of the carriers are almost useless, like doctors have no use. Developers, to make the game easier, made the diseases very low impact, so now we don't need doctors. Another item that I want to mention is that dupes are not smart at all. They tend to imprison themselves or jump to some unwanted places or even sleep in lava. When this happens, you lose your connections and bonds to them, because when they are acting like robots and not like an intelligent dupe, you would care less about them. As a result, the AI need a little bit of improvement. That brings me to the next item. This game is a heavy calculation based game. In the end game, even a powerful system feels laggy. The dupes will show these long pauses where they do not move for a few seconds and then they will move to the next rounds. This really breaks the immersion and your bonds to the game. That is why I personally try not to take many dupes and not discover all of the maps. The game is a CPU heavy dependent, and the second factor is probably the RAM. There is a hot discussion among Oni experts if multi-core multi-threading would be helpful or not, but I guess because that won't be achievable in the near future, the best thing we can do is to optimize the current code. I also have another suggestion here, which is regarding GeForce Now platform. If you do not know what is GeForce Now, it is letting you to play your games on their powerful systems and streaming it on your not powerful system. The only used to be available on GeForce Now, but for some mysterious reason it is not available anymore. So I think that would be really helpful to add it to the GeForce Now and make the game more accessible to many people with older systems. The next item is about game training. There are two ways to learn the game. Either put many hours to discover how some mechanics work. For example, cooling loop with accumulator and a steam turbine. You will not know about it if you haven't put many hours yourself, or if you haven't watched a content creator talked about it. I think it is necessary for long-term success of the game to have at least a training for some of the core mechanics of the game to be available in-game. Talking about the training, I should bring a note about the game community. I would say this game has a niche player base. So the game forum posts and the Reddit posts or even YouTube contents about these games can be sometimes intimidating for new players. Most of the time the content creators go for the optimal solutions, using many complicated designs in the game that makes it a little bit scary for new players. But I personally think Even the game designers didn't want to make the game more complicated than it is. In the last update, they mentioned that they want to redesign the space part because there were only less than 0.1% of the player base that made it to the space. I think that's the right approach, and what really attracts players to the game is when they see some simpler designs. I personally got familiar with the game by one of the Markiplier videos. So this item is more related to the game community than the developers, but I hope we can expand the player base without sacrificing the game's depth. Talking about the endgame, one of the problems that Oni suffers is that in the endgame we will have a blank space and there is nothing to discover. There is no terraforming, you just have used all the resources, nothing to discover, another charm lost. I personally do not have any recommendation for this part yet, but I think this is one thing that I should have mentioned. These were the main reasons that I think currently affect the game experience. I still really enjoy the game. There is no microtransactions in this game and the bugs are very limited. I would easily recommend this game to anyone interested in this genre with a little bit background in gaming. The next video is very dear to me because there I put my feet in the developer shoes and provided several suggestions and ideas that would hopefully improve the game. Some of them would be general, some of them would be a little bit more specific, and some of them would be just my personal interests, creative ideas that probably won't make it in the game. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to watch the next video. Leave a like if you liked it. I just started this journey on YouTube, and if you subscribe, that would make me really happy. Thank you very much. See you next time.